Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to leverage the single view layout within DockShell to create a modal screen scenario where we'll have, as this illustration is showing us, we'll have a LightSwitch screen that we will utilize to launch a search screen, and in that search screen, which will pop up as a modal, we'll let the user pick a value, and then when they close this search screen, the value they've chosen will actually return back as a message back to LightSwitch. So we have some elements at play here. We have this thing called a modal message, which is just a very simple class that we're going to be using as an entity to return from our modal screen on close. And we're going to utilize a messaging framework, the Galasoft MVVM Lite messaging framework, which we actually use within DockShell quite a bit. Works really well. It's very easy to use. And we're just going to have a very simple enum here, which is basically the result of what happened. All right, so that's kind of what we're going to build. Let's take a look at our actual code. And so we'll start with, we basically have a LightSwitch application with data source, Northwind data source, number of tables, and a couple of screens. And if we change over from our logical view to our file view, you'll see here that we have a standard DockShell layout. We have a solution folder called DockShell within our LightSwitch client project. And in there we have a solution folder called Model. And if we open that up and just double click on that, we'll open up our model and have a look and see what we've got in there. So we'll just pin back a few things here so that we can see what's going on. And zoom out a little bit. I'll just pin that back. There we go. So basically it's the same LightSwitch information that we have in our LightSwitch application. We have our orders options screen and orders options tab rather, and we have on that order options tab we have two screens. So if you're not familiar with this layout, that's because you probably haven't had a chance to watch the videos. There's other videos that show you how to lay out a DockShell application. And so what we have here is just a standard layout. So if I run this, for example, you'll see it come up looking something like this. And when I press this button, the orders list detail screen that we had modeled is actually coming up as a document window within the docking container within the model itself that we had modeled. And the search, in this case, is coming up as a floating window, but normally would kind of come up something like that as a document window. So what we want to do, though, is we want to, in fact, leverage this search window in a modal window and allow these items here to be chosen by the user and have it come back. So we really want it to launch from the screen and actually return to the screen once it's complete. So to do that, let's see what we need to do. So the first thing we want to do is as we notice there that both of these windows are showing as window layouts, and they will dock inside this docking control that's modeled here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change this search order screen from being a window layout to a single view layout, which will allow us to then establish that to be a modal window. And so all we need to do is go to our toolbox and drag our single view layout onto our canvas. We can actually delete this one, and we'll just pull this one down in its place. And if I just tuck that, it'll go down. And now we'll just change the properties on this one, and we'll call this one, instead of, we'll call it, let's see, it's search modal. And it already is set to modal, but we'll just give it a width and height. So we'll say height of, height of 400 and width of, let's say, 500. And the last thing that we need to do is basically link the search screen itself to the new single view layout or modal screen that we created. So to do that, we just go to our link tool and we just drag a link over and connect it, and we're done. So let's take a look at now what we've changed here. Okay, it looks the same as it comes up. We press our order screen, opens up the order screen. And if we open up the search screen, this thing finishes. Press that. You'll notice here that it opens up as a modal dialog, and basically nice dark background, which you can control within the actual screen itself. All right, so that's great. So now what we want to do is basically launch the screen from our orders list screen. So we're going to put a link somewhere over here that will launch it instead of this button. So let's do that. All right, so close down our application. And we're going to flip back from our, let's see, our file view to our logical view. So we want to go to our orders list detail screen. And what we're going to do is on the order list detail screen, probably somewhere around here, I think, we're just going to, let's see, right here maybe, add a button. And let's call this button search orders. Let's see. Looks like I've already got a button there. Let's try order search. There we go. And let's change this from a button to a link so that we're good to go. And let's just double click on that. And what we really want to do here is we just want to leverage, we're just going to call application dot, in this case here what we're going to do is basically call the show search orders screen, like that. I think that's it. Let's just see if that compiles and runs. Okay, so with the application up, let's open up the orders screen. And now we see this link. We click on that link. It opens up our search window. And of course, the idea is that we want to pick something from here. When we hit close, we want to have that result back here. So again, if we go back to our diagram, we've now added a link here. So that's launching this into a modal view. And now what we want to do is we want to do something in here, which is the action of closing the screen, and basically find the selected item and return that as a message back to the caller, which is the screen that launched it. So let's take a look at how to do that. So let's stop this application. Now, before we go in and add the additional bits, let's take a look at what some supporting classes that are behind the scenes that we're going to use here. So if we go into our DockShell folder here, we have already created this solution folder called messages, and in there we've got three simple classes. The first one is dialog result, and you can see it's a very simple enum structure that we can use to determine the type of closing event on the screen itself. And then we have this modal message, which is basically just a simple entity container. But you notice here it's got this GUID and the dialog result and some value, some object that we're returning from the screen itself. And then of course we've got this other piece here, which is this modal screen messages class, which has two operations, a send and a register. And these are actually part of the MVVM messaging framework itself. So this is what's leveraging that. And you can see that we are sending a, when we do a send, we're sending a modal message. And when we're registering, we're expecting an action to be return a modal message. And so that's basically it. So now if we close this down, so we see the underlying elements at play. What we'll do is I'll add the code. And so I'll just paste that in. And I'll explain it, how it's working. So this is the order list detail screen. So what we're doing is we're saying on loaded, if we haven't already registered for the callback for the modal screen message, let's do that right here. And this is the callback here. This is modal response. This is the action. And as you can see that it's returning this modal message. And all we're doing is we're just double checking that the content of that message is actually of type integer. And we're just printing that out. So maybe we'll set a breakpoint here, and we'll set a breakpoint here. So that is on the order list detail. So now on the search screen itself, let's go and open that up. So let's go to our logical view again and go to our search order screen. Let that open. And so what we want to do here is we want to write some code. And in this case, in this scenario, this is the search orders itself. And what we want to do is we want to hook the closing event of the form. And what we're going to do is we're going to check to see if this orders collection, this visual collection that's part of the view model for this particular search order screen, has a selected item, and if it does, we want to get the order ID and return that in this approach here, which is basically what we're doing is we're now sending the message. And of course, before what we were looking at was something that's going to receive the message, this registration bit here. And what we're doing is we're saying that the dialog, we're creating a new modal message, and the dialog result is set to OK. And we're basically, we don't have that yet, so we'll just pull that out of there. And what we're doing here is we're saying selected order is the value that we've chosen back here. So that's what we're going to do there. So let's run that and see what we get now. All right, and I've just put a breakpoint on the callback for the search orders, so right here. So on closing, we can see that happening. All right, so if we launch the orders screen, okay, we should fire into that orders loaded. The orders detail loaded event has fired, and we should probably check to see if that was successful or not, but we're making some assumptions here. This is just a demonstration. And we're checking to see if we've already registered. If we have not already registered, we're going to let it register, so we'll take that off now since we see how that works. All right, so now when we launch our orders screen, nothing's different. It's just going to simply open up the search order screen, and if I select this item here and hit close, we should hit that closing event. There we go on the search orders, and it shows that we do have a selected item, and so we can pick that value, and we're just going to send this new modal message to the modal screen messages message event, and let's just run that. And it's caught now, as you can see, in the orders list detail on the modal response. If we take a look at it, we can see that there's the dialog result set to OK. Now, of course, we could test that in our supporting event here. And we have the exchange context says 10.0.252, and we're good to go. And so away we go. So we'll just run that. All right, that's excellent. So now what we want to do is we're going to close this down. And you'll notice there that in the context, we actually had the ability to identify, put an identifier in there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to modify our search order screen. So if we go back to our Solution Explorer, go to Search Order, go into Design Mode. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a basically a data item, and it will be of type GUID. So here we go, and let's just call this one originator ID. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll make that a parameter of the screen itself. So now it's an input parameter of type GUID, and its name is originator ID. So that's cool. And now if we save that and we go back to here, and if we go back to our orders list detail, you'll notice here that here we'll need to pass in that originating ID. So what we'll do is we'll just create a private variable at the top of our class, and we'll pre-assign it with a value, and that's the value that we're going to stick in there. Okay, so that's basically on execute, we're going to pass in this this static value that we're creating. So that's great. And then on return, what we want to do is we actually want to and that was the item that I deleted before, was we want to set the originating ID to, let's see, originating ID. I'm not really sure of it. I'll have to double check this for a second, but something like that. I think that's what it is, originator ID. Might be case sensitive here. So let's just see by running this if we actually, if this works. Nope, we got an error, so let's just check it out. Let's see. So the error is here. So basically this is the reason it was failing before, that I couldn't rather add that before because it was previously defined, so I'll just take that off. Okay, so the first thing that you'll notice here is that we've lost our search button. That's because we added a parameter, an input parameter, and as soon as you do that, LightSwitch automatically doesn't make it an option to surface on a ribbon tab. But that's okay because we added a link, so let's just launch this order screen. And when that comes up, what we'll do is then link to order search itself. So now when we hit order search, up it pops, and we'll just pick any value here and close. And now you can see as it's closing, we are going to return a originating ID, which is the ID that was passed in originally. And then here's the response inside our orders list detail. And now you can see that we have a GUID of that matches this. So this is where we would basically check to see if this message that's coming back is actually for us. And in particular is the let's see, dialog result okay, and the actual exchange context object is of type int. So therein lies the example of how you would essentially build a modal dialog based on existing LightSwitch screens, such that you can pass information to and from the application itself. Hope you've enjoyed this video. For more information on DockShell, please visit our website at www.softlandingcanada.com. Thank you and have a great day.